Okay guys, welcome back to the shop. We're going to start where we left off on part one of the CT-3 clutch side cover install and adjustment, and we're just going to flow on with that procedure until we get the cover on, and then we're going to go to the other side. So let's get to it. And I'm going to actually leave the washer and the nut loose here until I've got the clutch on, so that I remember to tighten it. Okay, next thing we need to get in there is the spacer and the gear, and just kind of make sure they're clean. And you're going to stick first, let's put just a little oil on it here on the inside. Get that on there. And then we're going to oil up the spacer. And the hole, got one on both sides. The whole end goes out, just like this. And then get it. We've already got our 3mm washer back there, so we're good on that. Now we're ready for the clutch hub. And again, we're going to get some oil in here on the bush. And we're going to line up this cog to this cog. Got a little lint right there. And while you're at it, check this to make sure it's not too loose right here. You'll have a little, there's rubber in there, but you can change that. If that is really loose, you can pop these rivets out and put new rubbers in. I think I get those from England, Suco rubber or something like that. And I just make my own rivets and put it all back together. I'll be doing one of those soon. I just want to go through one, but this one is okay. It doesn't need it. So we're going to get this lined up, and hopefully it will drop on. There it goes. All right, the next thing that goes on there, I want to talk about a little bit. And that's, you've got three pieces that go in there. You've got this big thick washer, I believe that's a 2, and then you've got a thin washer and the thrust bearing. Now, some people look at the book, and I'm going to show you the book. Okay, they look at the book and they say, well, there's only 2 washers here. You got the thrust bearing and the big washer, thick one. But that's not true. And what happens is, if you order this number 2, the thrust bearing, you will get 2 pieces. You get the little thin washer, this one, and the thrust bearing. That together makes your thrust bearing. They don't show it like that, but that is how it is. And that's why there's not 3 pieces here. They're showing that bearing and that one washer as one piece. You know, and most people would never know that, because most of the time those things don't wear out. You just put them back in. So you're just looking and you forget, well, gee whiz, how'd that come out? And that's the problem, is unless you've ordered this piece, you will never know that. Okay, so all that being said, this washer is in fact the race, so to speak, to the bearing. And I'm getting some oil on it. It slides up over the hub. And then I'll go ahead and oil both sides of the bearing. And then it goes on. So that's one piece, essentially. Then you take the thick washer, I believe that's 2 millimeters if I remember right. Yeah, 2 millimeters. And that one goes on top of it. So that's the way it should go. Now goes our hub. Get the hair off of it there. Okay, now remember a while ago I talked to you about the play in this shaft. That's something that you've got to pay attention to. A lot of times this will completely disappear like this. Now, let me show you something. I didn't fix this beforehand. Here's the washer, the lock washer that came out of it. See how it's raised up on these right here? These are raised up. They're not supposed to be. That's because they had this, they didn't get it on right, and these splines pushed up on these and pushed them up. So what do? All right, I'll show you. Brought my little anvil here over here, and we're just going to take our hammer, or you can get a new one if you're into spending money. Okay, see this was on, it was bent over here at one time, and then it was bent over here. And actually I'm going to take, that looks like a little piece fixing to break off. I'm going to go over and see if I can pull that piece off. I don't want to lose it inside. Okay, I want to show you something out of the book here. A while ago I showed you about the clutch thrust washer and bearing. Now, something else I want to show you here is behind the clutch. You remember I told you needed to have a 3 millimeter or a 1 and a 2 to equal 3 millimeter washer. Now this is an old book, and it's showing two washers there, 18 and 19. And when you go over here to the breakdown, 18 and 19, it shows you here that is a 2 and a 1. Okay, that's the millimeters. Now I just pulled this off of Rocky Mountain site, and they're only showing 1. And I didn't print off the other side, but 18 is now 3, a 3 millimeter. So you've got 2 on the old book, and you've got 1 on the new book. And another thing to note here is some people may think, well, where'd you find out about the hole being out on the bushing? And it's right here. You can see that the slot with the hole right here is out toward you when you're installing this. Now, another thing I want to show you is the Kickstarter. Okay, on the older bikes, Remember, this is the snap ring we put on. Then it shows you a 10, which is a washer. We go over to 10 here, and it's a 1 millimeter. That last number is 1 millimeter. So then when you go to the new, this is off of Rocky Mountain again, they don't even show that washer. So it's not there. So two things, well, three things actually to bring from that is the orientation of the spacer, the number of washers, and the thickness of, right here behind that bushing, and the lack of, on the newer breakdown, of the washer at the Kickstarter. And let's see, where was it? There it is. Yep, right there. So on the older ones, you know, you've got a little more data. That's where I came up with the orientation here and the 2 washers versus 1. And then when you go to the later versions, it tells you to not put one on the Kickstarter and put just one 3 millimeter one there. So I just wanted to bring that up. Those are some things that come up from time to time. People say, well, the book shows this or the book shows that. But you need both books. You really do. Okay, just get my pliers here and take that little piece off. It was just about to come off. You could probably use a new washer on here, but there's plenty of other places for it to bend over. So we'll be reusing it. So the best way to do this is pull this shaft out so that these splines are fully out. Then line this up so that the splines actually go into it. And I think over here is where we're going to end up pulling that tab up. I'm just going to put the washer on here real quick. I mean the nut on, just see if I can tell where that's going to be, because I can move it around. Yeah, I think by the time I'm tight, it's probably actually going to be right here. Okay. Now let me show you the other thing on this nut. You see the recess here? It's going to pull, as you tighten this up, it's going to pull this shaft out and pull those splines up into this groove. That's what you want. What happened there before was not right, and it had actually deformed that washer. So you want to make sure that that thing stays down where it is right now. And I'm gonna put a little shot of oil on this, just so it will be easier to put on. Okay, so we've got that down. We know that that washer is where it's supposed to be. Now, let's see if I got the right socket here. Yep, I do. Okay, here's where our little fancy holder comes in again. And I'm going to hold on to that and tighten our nut. And try not to let this rest in here on one of these tangs. You don't want to break something. You want to hold on to it. I actually pull on the wrench and that at the same time. All All right, you should be good. And I think I'm just gonna get away from the old spots here and pull it up right here. And again, you can get in there with your channel lock pliers, and most of the time you can grab a hold of that and pull it. I think it's going to be, I've got to get it started a little first though. So we're just going to go down in here with our chisel. It's not wanting to. There, okay. Get it started with a screwdriver. And then just pull it down. All right. Now that's pulled down on a new area of the washer. Here's where we pulled the piece off. I wasn't liking what I was seeing there. Okay, so we've got that. Now we want to get our plunger in there. Put a little oil on it so we don't forget that. Okay, I've got the first steel. Actually, I want to show you something here. You've got a rounded edge and a sharp edge. I don't know that it tells you anywhere. I've never seen it, not that I remember anyway. But I like to install this with the sharp edge out. And the reason is when I pull the lever, it's opening this up. So it's pushing against this, which is a little bit more pressure than what these springs are going to have. So my idea is have the rounded edge that would be least likely to catch or snag on something to be drawn back in with the springs. And me with the lever up on the handlebar, I think that I can pull more pressure probably than those springs can. So that's why I do that. Once I've got that first one in, I can put the cushion on. The next steel will push this all the way down, so it's not a big deal. And like I say, I've been soaking the fiber ones here in oil. So the fiber goes on, and I've already checked the thickness on everything. Everything should be good to go. Again, I'm placing the sharp edge out. Maybe other people have a different thought on it. And then our next cushion. And so on and so forth. All right, got all our plates on. Plates and cushions. Our actuator rod is in there. And I'm just going to put a little oil on the face of the retainer and stick that on. And then we'll start our springs and screws. And tighten all our screws up. All right, now, let's see, we're going to turn that way. So I'm going to put my 1-penny tool right there. I'm going to move you out a little bit. And then tighten. I wonder if I got that right. I bet I didn't. Nope. And I rarely do. I always have to do it a second time. It goes underneath. All right. It should be good. And there's our tool. You can still spin it. Take a hammer and straighten it out. Okay, so we're tight here, and all we've got to do here is give our clutch screws a little love tap. These go into aluminum, so don't get too wild. Like I say, just a little love tap. And that should do it. All right. Okay, I think we're ready to put our cover back on. Everything's working freely here. Looks like everything's in except for one thing. That's our drive gear for tachometer. That goes on like that. And it will, this piece marries up with this. And this marries up with that, I believe is how it works. So I've got, everything's free here. This, the tack gear and the oil pump drive gear. And it's all cleaned out. The gasket's still good on it. I like to just reuse those. They generally reuse them and they work just fine. And like I said, I put a new oil seal in here for the Kickstarter, and we're just going to put a little oil on it. And I will do the same back here. Just a little bit of oil on the shaft. And make sure everything is dry. Looks like it is. And let's see if we can get it back on there. May have to turn things just a little bit to get them to line up. Don't force anything. Feels good. I think the back end needs a little tap. Well, still don't think we're quite lined up. Sometimes you can take the gear here and kind of, okay, that's lined up. I think it's just the dowel pins. Just tap it. Actually, this looks closer on the front, so it's something here in the back that's not quite working out yet. Keep the hose out of it, that'll help. There, I think we're there. Feels like everything's lined up there now. There it goes. All right, she's on. Let me find some screws. All right, got them all started. So we'll run those in. And again, don't forget the one behind the oil pump. And just give these a little love tap. Okay, let's get our Kickstarter on and see how that's going to act now. Is that right, or do we need to be up just a little bit? I think that's good. I like that. Well, I think I need another socket. Okay, now let's see how that works. Yeah, see, that's much better. Okay, let's go over to the other side. Start over there. Okay, let's get this side buttoned up. If you remember right, we've already put the seal in on this side. Kind of cleaned all this up the best we could. A lot of this is just like some kind of a corrosion type stuff that's in there. One thing I want to do here before I put this stator in is I want to go ahead and clean the contact. Makes it a little easier to do before I put it back in, and then we'll adjust it later on with the dial indicator. I just use my point file here. Remember, it did have spark. It actually did run, but need to clean it up and need to reset everything, so we'll just take a few minutes here to do that. Okay, let me get some spray. And we'll just kind of clean it out with some contact cleaner. This dries really fast. Before we put it together, I'll just put a piece of paper in there and clean it. Yep, all right. just like that. For the most part, everything looks okay. You can see some dark, greasy like material here on that coil, but it's covered with all this paper, so I'm not going to mess with it much. I think we're just going to call all that stuff good at this point, unless it tells me later that it isn't. So let's get this back in here. Get our little grommet in. It's sure seen better days. It's just everything is just so hard. On a restoration, we'd take care of all that. But we just can't do it for getting it running. Okay, I got some new screws today. These are the new ones I got, and I actually got these from Grainger, and they're pretty much exactly the same thing it had, except the ones I got here are not JIS, but the threads and the taper and everything are the same. I have some JIS on order, and I also got them from Grainger, but they're back ordered, I don't know, for at least 30 days, I think they said. So we're just going to have to wait on that. And I'm not sure how much better they'll actually be, because these fit awful good. And I'm just going to give these a little whack. And I'm going to get some grease on that wick. I'll put a little oil on it to get down into the wick, but I'm going to put the contact grease on the top of it. Okay, I think we'll be okay. Should be able to adjust all this through the slot. One thing I want to do though is I just want to check and make sure that screw is, I can get it loose. Let me get a screwdriver. Okay, I've got my hollow ground screwdriver here. Boy, right now I'm kind of glad I did that, because it was pretty tight. And I've got the keyway to the top. I can't really tell. Doesn't feel right. It's in there. There it goes. Okay. Washer, lock washer, and just going to put a little drop of oil on it. Let's see, 19. Yep. And I'm just going to put my spanner wrench on here, and these are short, so they're not going to get in here and get into a coil or anything. You got to watch that on all these flywheels when you're putting them on. Okay. All right. I think okay, there's neutral. And I am going to leave this side cover off for when we get the timing done. And I think I can go ahead and get the foot pegs on. I think we can do that. Well, maybe I'll leave that for now because I need to clean underneath here, get a little more of the grease out of there. So I think yep. There's quite a bit of grease, or oil rather, in there. But I'm going to put a little down on that lower bearing just for general purposes. And I just want a little extra in there. So I'll drop a little Yamaha lube on both sides of this. Not a lot. I don't want to have to purge all that again. And I'm going to put some in the down at the bearings. A couple shots on both sides. Okay. And we'll just go ahead and stick down some new paper towels in there. Yeah, I've got to clean this gasket area here too. So I think that's about as far as we can go today. Let me get the pegs on. I think we can do that. Nope, I'm going to leave them off because I got grease underneath. Okay, so I think that's all we can do there. That should... I've got to clean some gasket material off. I've got to clean underneath. We've got to bore and do all that stuff, so we got quite a bit yet to do this. Okay guys, that kind of does it for the day. I think we've got two probably close to 45-minute videos here, so that should pretty much complete that. The next one will probably get into boring and honing and fitting the piston. We've also got to set the timing, but we've got to get the top end put on first so we can do that. So there's plenty yet going on with the CT-3. So just hang in there with me. We'll get to it. Thanks for going along on the ride. See you next video.